Okay. With that being said, thank you so much, Judge Torrealba, for being here with us today. We greatly appreciate the time that you're taking to talk to our members. Um, as you may know, Legal is about women empowerment and going into the legal field and the political field. And I think that the advice that you shared today is going to be really helpful for all of our members. With that being said, can you describe your journey to becoming a judge, including any education or professional endeavors?
Okay, well, hello everyone, and nice to meet you. I wish I was meeting you in person, but I understand the strange times that we find ourselves in, and I appreciate the opportunity and the invitation to speak with all of you. So um, thank you for joining us tonight or this afternoon. I began my career, I guess, in undergrad at Central Michigan. I'm from a small town in Michigan. I'm the first in my family to go to college. My brothers and sisters both went after me, but I'm the first in my family to go to college, the first in my family to graduate, and the first in my extended family to become a lawyer and then now judge. I went to Central Michigan and then I started law school at DePaul University of Law. I went to school at night and worked full time during the day. And I began that the first 2 years were at DePaul in Chicago, which was obviously much closer to Michigan than where I'm at now. And then I transferred to Southwestern Law School, where I received my degree and graduated, passed the bar. And uh, when I graduated, the times were not like they are now. It was not a job boon, and so it took me a while to get the job. I'll call it my dream job, but the job that led me to where I'm at today, and that was to become a deputy district attorney with the Los Angeles County District Attorney's Office, and I started there. I believe it was 2.5 years after I graduated because they just weren't hiring. And I worked there for 17 years before I applied to become a judge. And I was appointed to become a judge by Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger. And I'm a huge fan of everything Terminator. So because of him, I'm where I'm at today. And I've been a judge since 2010. So I'm entering my 12th year as a judge, and I can't even tell you. I mean, it seems like it's gone by in a blink of an eye. It seems like yesterday I was just getting sworn in. So, um, yeah, that's my pathway to where I'm at right now.
Thank you very much for sharing with us your journey. It was very inspiring to hear it. And our next question is, did you always know this was what you wanted to do, or was it an interest developed as you got more exposure to the legal field?
I would say that it was kind of a combination, mostly to become a judge. It was something that I developed as I worked in the district attorney's office, and kind words and inspiration from colleagues and other bench officers that became mentors and very inspirational to me in my career. So it wasn't something that I thought of in high school and thought, oh, I'm going to be a judge one day. I didn't even really think I didn't, like I said, I was the first in my family to go to college. So my family, although very supportive, did not encourage me to go to college or encourage me to go to law school. So it was just something I figured out and stumbled upon along the way. And by the way, if anyone has any questions as we go, please just feel free to interrupt or ask. I think it's way more interesting to be interactive than to just listen to me talk. So if anyone has any questions, please feel free to share.
Kind of going off of that, do you have any advice for students who hope to work in the legal field or who specifically aspire to be a judge in the future?
Absolutely. If there's one thing that I learned, and I look back upon hindsight 2020, realizing just how lucky I was to kind of stumble upon things. And I don't want you to think that I was, walking around blindly and just like, bumping into walls all the time. But I really didn't. I I didn't know that there were so many possible mentors or people that would have been willing and happy to assist me. And so I think one of the biggest regrets I have is not being more involved while I was in law school or in undergrad. And mostly in my defense, I was working. So in undergrad, I had 1 or 2 jobs while I was going to undergrad. When I was in law school, at one point I had 3 jobs. So my free time was kind of consumed by that. But in retrospect, even with all of that, there were opportunities for me to connect with and talk to attorneys along the way. And I missed those opportunities. I didn't see them. I didn't understand the value of them. And so if there's anything that I can encourage you to do at this point is to take advantage of groups like this. There are so many amazing groups that not only encourage participation as a law school student, but prior to getting into law school. The Women's Lawyers Association of Los Angeles, it's called WALALA, a mouthful, but they encourage participation by undergraduate students that know that they want to go to law school. The court where I'm currently assigned, Riddy can attest to this. She participated in an internship program that's put together for undergraduate and high school students in conjunction with law school students. So there's opportunities to get involved and learn more about the legal profession, the criminal justice system, the civil law area, just by reaching out and connecting with attorneys and judges such as myself.
I can definitely attest to how helpful it is because I'm also the first in my family to go to college, and I don't know any lawyers, especially not any judges. And I think that when I got my internship and I started like going to our meetings, and there were even opportunities where I got to like sit inside the courtroom, and that experience is something that we can't get inside a classroom or even through these like virtual platforms, which I'm very grateful for, and it taught me a lot. And it kind of re-solidified the fact that I do want to go to law school and that I do want to pursue a career. So if you guys ever have any questions, please feel free to like contact any of us, and especially those opportunities that Judge Torrealba talked about. They're something that I highly recommend all of us to take advantage of.
Absolutely. And I know it's later down in your questioning, but there will be, the court's going to open that opportunity again this summer. It will be a combination of virtual and in person. So I can talk about that more when we get to that. But even if that opportunity doesn't happen, anyone that's interested in working or volunteering or doing an internship with the court, just get in touch with me. And if I can't personally do it, I will point you in the right direction.
So I know you kind of mentioned some, but are there any other tips that you would give to someone looking for legal internships?
So I think there is a wealth of resources for UCLA students. So definitely take advantage of all of the connections and established relationships that UCLA has with you in mind. But I would also say that participating in things like such as this, and when I say, and I hope Riddy you'll share my contact information to get in touch with me and ask about other possibilities, I would follow up on those. When individuals, and obviously I can't speak for other women that have come to speak to you, but I will tell you that taking time out to participate in a program like this means a lot to me. And I do it because I want to give back, to assist and empower women as much as I possibly can. So when I say that I can help, I will help if I can, then I mean it. And anyone else that's taking the time out, I'm going to venture to guess that they mean the same thing. So don't be shy in reaching out. It doesn't have to be, the most well, I don't want to encourage you to send me, poorly, written email, but you don't have to be able to, you don't have to say, oh, I know I want to be, I want to work in the criminal justice system for sure. And I want to come do an internship with you. You can say something like, I'm interested in the court in general. I don't really know what is available. Would it be okay to call you, to talk to you, to come in and meet with you? If you open the door that way, not only will I respond, but I will, if it's not something that I personally do, and I'm in the criminal area, by the way, I guess I don't think I said that. I currently am presiding over a felony criminal court at this time. If it's not something I personally do, and I can get you in touch with a colleague that I know would be just as receptive to not only speaking with you or maybe even hosting you as an intern. So there's many people that like to spend time the same way I do. I'm not that unique, but I do know it's hard for you to know that, and I can point you in the right direction. So that is the biggest tip I can give you. Any person that gives you their card or says, if I can help you, I will, take it for what they mean, and that is that you need to just be brave enough to send the email or make the phone call, because once you get past that threshold, people will do whatever they can to assist you.
And kind of going off of that, especially something like as a club that we're working on for our members is bi-weekly, we're trying to have a newsletter come out filled with like resources and people you can contact. I know the district attorney's office also has summer internships. So different aspects like that, we're going to also put in our newsletter so that you guys can apply, because I know when I was trying to find internships, it was very hard. And especially even with the internship I had this past summer with Judge Torrealba, it was a lot of cold emails that I sent, and it then stuck with one of the people that was recruiting. So even if you get nervous, the biggest advice that I think you guys should take away is like, don't be scared to reach out. There's a lot of people who want to help us, and we just have to take the first step.
Absolutely. And also remember that these are a little bit unique times. So Rudy's experience, I think, was unique to the situation. Prior to COVID, we had a protocol in place, and there was information on the website. You knew the person to contact. When COVID hit, things just have been scattered and all over the place. And last summer was the first time that the court was even willing to allow us to do a virtual. And so we kind of scrambled a couple of months before that. And anyone that was sending emails, we were trying to collect them and get them to the one spot where we could, get them into the program. So hopefully it'll be easier and more streamlined this year, because it's something that we'll be replicating, and we'll get the information onto the court website. But in exactly what Rudy said, if you, you can kind of cold call any of the judges. There's if you go on the Superior Court website, you'll see different committees and different things that people do, and you could just pick a committee and say, oh, I'm really interested in diversity and inclusion. Oh, Judge Torrealba, she's the co-chair of that committee. Let me reach out to her and see if that's if she can do an internship, or if she knows somebody that'd be willing to do an internship with me. So we have community outreach, we have diversity committees, there's all kinds of different committees within the court for people to be involved and in touch with the community.
And just like the last thing I'll touch upon regarding that internship, because it really did help me. They also have events once you get into the internship that opens you to different avenues. Like I remember Judge Torrealba brought different law schools to come talk to us. There was also different professionals that came that weren't just part of the court system, that worked in different parts of the government. And I think that was very helpful. So I highly encourage, especially if you're like an underclassman too, like this internship will very much open your eyes. Now, like our next, oh, sorry.
No, I was gonna say this isn't a plug for the internship, but I will replicate the same thing. I think it's good to know everything about the justice system. So my philosophy, if you come to work, come to do an internship with me, is that I want you to know as much as you can about the justice system as a whole. So the district attorney's office, the public defender, alternate public defender, the interpreters, the court staff itself, you know, the magic behind making every courtroom work, court reporters, probation. And then for you, for all of you that are thinking about law school, I think getting to know some of the local law schools and what they have, what it takes to be admitted, talk to their admissions people. And last year we made some great connections, and I've already reached out to a couple of people, and I fully intend to replicate the same thing. And then the other thing, I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot about the internship, but the other thing that I think was really unique to the virtual program, which I take as a huge bonus, and I completely want people to come in if they can, but you know, I was able to get students exposed to many different jurisdictions, to mental health court, to family law and probate, to civil court, to criminal aspects, just things that you can't always do in person. I mean, these courts are pretty, you know, not everything's right in the same place. It's not all in the same building. So driving, parking, getting to the other courtrooms, it's not always that easy. So the virtual positive part of the program, I believe, was getting students, you know, at least exposed to some of those other jurisdictions, and then make a decision if they wanted to try to physically go and and observe and sit in a courtroom and see if that's something they were interested in. So that's definitely a plus of the virtual. The negative is that you're not here, and you don't get to see every single thing that's happening in the courtroom. But as Riddy said, we were able to have some days where people came in, and I fully expect to be able to do the same thing. Know when trials are happening, get people in to observe certain trials, or spend at least a few days. You won't be here every day, but you get to spend some time here in the courthouse, and that won't be a problem at all.
Another aspect I think of the internship was learning a lot of like the terms that I didn't know. And going off of that, our next question is, what is a bar association and how do bar associations evaluate judges?
So a bar association is typically a group of people that come together with like philosophies. So I mentioned the Women Lawyers Association of Los Angeles. It's a women's group that is dedicated to sharing information and putting together programs that empower women and help women. So for instance, there's going to be, Are You Interested in Being a Federal Judge program that I think is tomorrow night. And they do similar kinds of programming what's happening with Legal, but on a, already lawyers and people that are admitted to the practice of law. And the associations many times have scholarships or to help law school students. They have community outreach programs, things that they're interested in. There's another group that I'm familiar with and participate in frequently, the Mexican American Bar Association. So again, a group of lawyers that have come together, been together for years and years and years, that are, in tune with the community and in touch with issues that are important to that community of lawyers. There's the Criminal Defense Bar Association. There are, civil attorney, Southern California Civil Litigators Association. I mean, there's so many of them. But what you'll find out when you go to law school, that the groups of attorneys, that the legal community is actually very small, and getting involved with those associations help you develop relationships and mentorships as you're going through and starting out in your career. So not only as a law school student, but then, steps into becoming a new attorney. And then, as you go on, developing interest in different areas and getting more information as you continue in your career. And then, giving it, paying it forward, reaching back and mentoring and helping other people in a field that you're interested in. Another big one that I would encourage you to look at is Los Angeles County Bar Association. So that's for all of Los Angeles County, and within the Los Angeles County Bar Association, there are subsets. So there's a criminal division, there's a civil division, there's a family division, there's a juvenile division, there's many, many, many different kinds of divisions. And then another main thing that LA County Bar Association and all the bar associations do is they put on continuing legal education training. So new laws that come out, things that need to be brought to the forefront, strategies, practice tips on how to deal with different issues within, the area or practice that you're at. So the bar associations offer not only the support and mentorship, but also continuing education, which is a requirement for all practicing lawyers. They have to do a minimum of 30 or 45 hours every 3 years. I forget what it is. I haven't had to do that for a little bit, but it's either 30 or 45 hours, a minimum every 3 years. And then you renew your membership with the state bar by showing that you've completed those continuing education.
So kind of going off topic, as a woman who has been in the legal field for 14 years, as you mentioned, I think that you witnessed how diversity has in some level increased in the field. What do you feel is the most underrepresented aspect in the legal field?
I would say that even though I have seen, women become more and more prevalent in the legal field, women bench officers are still underrepresented, and women in position of leadership, especially in the Superior Court, in Los Angeles Superior Court, are still very underrepresented. And within the subsects of that, women of color are even less represented. So I'm very involved in and have a strong affinity for pushing not only for women, but for women of color. And the need for that is so obvious and so glaring, but I'll say it out loud. There are, when somebody comes into, from the court perspective, and this is my opinion and not the opinion of the Los Angeles Superior Court, but in my humble opinion, that when somebody comes into a courtroom, if they see somebody that they can relate to or feel comfortable with, or without hearing a word come out of whoever's wearing the black robe's mouth, there's a sense of security when you see or experience that. I don't think that's news to anybody. So whenever we can replicate the community in positions of leadership and on the bench, then that makes the community stronger. It makes sure that diversity is achieved by everyone understanding different perspectives from different people and different backgrounds. It happens naturally, and it's so important to the development and the continuing evolution of our society. And as much as I like to say, when I started law school, things looked very different, I wish I could say that it was, the difference is glaring, because it's still not glaring. It's happening, but it's not happening quickly enough. And the disparity in women in the private sector and their ability to reach levels, and this is just things that I read. I obviously don't have any personal knowledge or personal experience with it, but statistically speaking, women not getting paid the same kinds of salaries as men, doing the same kind of work, and not making it to positions of partner or leadership in the private sector is grossly underrepresented. And it's the same, the level of underrepresentation is not the same in the superior courts, but it's still there. So there's strides being made, but more needs to happen, in my opinion. Again, not the opinion of the court and not the opinion of anyone that I work with. I'm speaking for myself.
I also think that women empowerment is like very important. And I think that, as you mentioned, that there's a lot of weight that goes into being someone of color that is on the bench. And my question is, have you ever faced criticism for the decisions you make in court, FES? How do you handle the consequences?
So I'm not sure, that's kind of a broad question. So, in what I do, I'm in a criminal court. And so there's always going to be one side that's not going to be happy with my decision. And that's probably true in civil court too, especially as you're making decisions towards the end of a case being resolved. But there's always an unhappy individual in a courtroom. There's always going to be a side that their motion was granted and a side that their motion was denied. I personally, in terms of a decision that I've made, have not received criticism, at least not to my face. There's been appeals taken of my decisions, and which is part of the process. And I encourage people, if they feel that I made an incorrect legal ruling, to appeal it. I've been pretty fortunate, and a majority, I'm not gonna say all because I am not perfect. I make mistakes just like everybody else, but a majority of the decisions that I've made have been upheld. And I'd like to think that's because I put the time in before I make a decision, then, and not rule just from the seat of my pants, so to speak. But criticism comes in lots of different ways, and a criticism that I can think of as I was applying to be a bench officer to get to this position were people that would say, maybe not so much directly to me, or they would say it in an underhanded, undertoned kind of way. And let me give you an example of that. When you go through the judicial application process, there's a lot people, these bar associations that I referenced, the LA County Bar Association has a vetting process, and they explore your background. They make sure that you don't have, that you haven't done anything crazy, that you're not breaking the law, that you have a good reputation within the community, that and then there's a system, a rating system of whether you're going to be exceptionally well qualified, or well qualified, or just qualified, or not qualified at all. And going through that process, there's two committees that do that. One's called the Judicial Nominating Evaluation Committee, Jenny, and the LA County Bar Association. People can be very, it can be rude. I mean, just rude. So colleagues, people that I worked with that I didn't really know, would start saying things about, maybe not about my practice or who I was, but would say, oh, well, what's she doing applying? Why does she think she could get appointed? What has she done? And so luckily for me, those are the kind of criticisms or kinds of things that I've had to deal with. Nothing, well, I shouldn't say that. Of recent, nothing more severe than that. But people still question, like, well, how did she get there? Why is she in that position? And I respond with not so much in words, but with action, and just try to work harder and be the best version of myself to demonstrate that I'm here because I work hard, and hard workers and people that put in the work should get the opportunity just as much as anyone else. I hope that answers the question.
I think with your type of work comes a lot of responsibility and criticism, as you mentioned, from one side always. And you mentioned earlier that people can appeal your decisions, but is there anyone who can help you with your decision or can tell you what to do, such as like supervisors who help facilitate who receives what cases?
The short answer is no. So judges are independent bench officers. Constitutionally, by the California Constitution, we are deemed to be independent decision makers and have the responsibility of making the decisions. Can I call a friend or talk to somebody, do some research before I make my decision? Absolutely. But it's not your typical kind of hierarchy situation where you kind of start at the bottom and you make your way up to the top, and you're a supervisor or you're a partner or you're the CEO or something like that. It's everyone has the same amount of responsibility, and from day one till the day I retire. So, and another judge cannot undo my decision. That has to come from an appellate court. So another superior court judge can't say, oh, you made that ruling is wrong, so I'm going to come in and I'm going to fix it. We're equal and do not have the authority to undo the ruling of another bench officer. But I do have friends, that trusted friends and people that I call and talk to before I make a decision, especially on sentencing. You know, in a felony court, you can have some very serious sentences, all the way up to death penalty. I haven't had a death penalty case as a judge. I haven't had to sentence anybody to that, but I've had to sentence somebody to a life sentence, and I've had to sentence somebody to a life sentence without the possibility of parole. So those are some very serious sentences, and I don't take that lightly. And I put in not only the individual personal research to do it, but I talk it out with trusted colleagues that have, you know, been on the bench longer than me or handled more cases like that than I have. And vice versa. I get calls like that from some of my colleagues on a pretty regular basis, asking to talk something out, or, oh, I've had the situation that's coming up, you know, let's talk it out. So I'm not telling anybody what to do, but we do share information to try to make each of our decision-making processes fair, equitable, and well-reasoned and thought out.
Going off of that, I know you mentioned that nobody can necessarily overrule the decision you have made because there's like an appellate court. Could you describe to our members what the jurisdiction is with an appellate court and how that process works?
Sure. So I can tell you how it works from my level and then going up. So generally speaking, when a case comes into and this is for the state court level, the federal court is different, and I can't explain that because I'm not familiar enough with it. But on the state court level, when an individual is charged with a crime, they have the right to be arraigned within 48 hours. So we have an arraignment court where those cases are heard on a regular basis. And once a person is arraigned either on a criminal charge, that's a misdemeanor. So a misdemeanor is county jail 1 year or less, 364 days in jail or less. Anything more, state prison. Or a felony is state prison. Typically, most of them are 16, 2 or 3 years, with violent and serious offenses having much higher penalties than that. But that as your baseline. If it's a misdemeanor, then the individual, if they're in custody, has the right to have their trial within 30 days. If they're out of custody, they have a right to have their trial within 45 days. On a felony, you have a right to have a preliminary hearing to determine that there's a substantial evidence or enough evidence to go forward on the complaint allegations, and that you have a right to have that done within 10 days of your arraignment. And then within the preliminary hearing and being held to answer, that there's sufficient cause to believe that the allegations have been, there's enough evidence to go forward to present to a jury. You have a right to have the trial within 60 days. I'll tell you, on most felonies, especially in COVID, that those timelines have been blown out of the water. But even pre-COVID, on a violent and serious offense, I would say on average, a case involving any kind of sex offense or a murder or any kind of serious felony involving a firearm or serious injury to somebody, those cases typically take a year to 2 years to go to trial. So there's just a lot more investigative work to do. There's a lot more research to be done. The attorneys want to spend time negotiating and trying to resolve the matter if they can without a trial and getting the, best resolution possible. But then if there is a trial, once a person is convicted, either by plea or by trial, they have a right to appeal the decision on a misdemeanor within 30 days, on a felony within 60 days. So there's a period of time where the convicted person, even if it's a plea, can challenge the conviction. And there's certain grounds that you can challenge on. Most of them are ineffective assistance of counsel. There's new facts that need to be considered and weren't considered. There was a procedural issue. There's a wrong jury instruction. There was a wrong information provided, a wrong ruling by the judge on issue maybe involving identity or admissibility of some kind of evidence, things of that nature. So the appeal is based on the procedural part of, you don't go back and say, and look at the underlying facts. You can, the appellate court can say, maybe there were new facts that should have been considered, remand for new trial for that reason if a motion for new trial was denied. But the appellate court does not retry or relook at the facts of the case. They're only looking at it from a procedural perspective. So was the defendant's constitutional rights preserved? Were all the procedural aspects of the trial intact and appropriately put into place? Were the rulings correct by the bench officer? And was the defendant effectively represented by counsel? If those things are all in place, then the verdict would be upheld. And if the defendant wanted to continue to challenge, then they would have to go to the California Supreme Court. And if it's denied, then they have one last chance of going to the U.S. Supreme Court. But they would, you have to go through all, again, it's all procedurally. Once you're convicted of the crime, the challenges become procedural. Was it, did the trial happen fairly? And was the evidence that was admitted into trial, was it admitted fairly in accord with the law? I wasn't ready for that question, by the way.
Thank you, though. I think you explained it really well, and I'm pretty sure that all of our listeners and members have a better idea. Because even for me, I know I worked with you this summer, but I was still a bit confused about it. So the explanation also helped clear it up for me.
Great.
So our next question is, what has been your favorite part about being a judge, and what has been the most challenging part?
My favorite part is this. I love being able to spend time in the community. And I know you think, wow, is that really why you became a judge? But as a judge, I have more access, and people want to hear my story. So not that I think my story is important or anything of that nature. I just think it's important to share and to encourage young women and young men to try, because like I said, I came from a very small town, and I was just there in Michigan this last weekend. And when I look at where I came from and where I'm at today, it's very, very different. And I'm actually proud of the young me that was brave enough to figure out how to get out of there. And it shouldn't be that hard. So one of my favorite parts of being a judge is being able to connect with young, inspirational, future community leaders that I know are going to rise to the occasion and be great leaders and innovators and hopefully lawyers that appear in my court one day. The most challenging part, I would say, has been this recent pandemic. When the pandemic started, I was in a position of leadership with the court. I was a supervisor, and not that supervisors tell other judges what to do. They do supervise the day-to-day actions of the court. So making sure there's enough interpreters, making sure, we work with admin, there's a whole court admin. Again, the magic behind making sure the court is as operating on a day-to-day basis. And there are certain judges in positions of leadership that help make that happen, that deal with, day-to-day things. If a judge calls in sick, what do you do? Things like that. And when the pandemic hit, it's just unlike anything that's ever happened to anyone. And I'm sure you all feel the same way. And navigating how to deal with a person's constitutional rights and still keeping that person and all the witnesses and all the people that come into the courtroom safe was a challenge that it was the most difficult thing I've ever dealt with. I had many sleepless nights, weekends, just spending a lot of time time well spent, by the way, just trying to figure out protocols and how to keep people safe and what to do. That by far has been the most challenging thing I've ever had to do. And I'm grateful that I was in that position with Judge Oda is the supervising judge now. He was there. Judge Sergio Tapia was also there. And the three of us spent a lot of time together. And it was a personal learning experience on top of it, but it was I don't know how to explain it, but it was very challenging. And the protocols that are in place today to allow for us to have the virtual internship this summer kind of partly arose out of that. How to have people come in, how to have jurors come in and be safe. It all arose from all of those efforts. And it wasn't just me, please, I by any means, I say there were so many people in addition to the three other judges that I just mentioned, but it was a challenge that everybody rose to, and I am proud to be a part of that.
I think you kind of touched upon how challenging it was for you, and going kind of off of that, I know being a judge, there's a lot of cases that can be emotionally taxing, and I was wondering how you balance your personal life while also your work life.
That is the hardest part. So, and people it's not just the death penalty cases that weigh on you or the sex crimes cases that weigh on you. I will tell you that some of the cases that weigh most heavy on my heart personally are some of the cases where people are struggling with an addiction and going in and out of programs and coming in or not showing up, or their attorneys negotiating these great deals. There was this gentleman that he's not much older than any of you, very little of a criminal background. His attorney negotiated a great deal for him, and he was working towards getting it done. All he had to do was go to school or get a job and do, I forget how many hours of community service and stay out of trouble. And I don't know what happened, but he got another conviction, or he has another case for another similar kind of crime. And he came in the other day, and I just said, and the whole thing, I don't know what's going to happen. But I just said to him, I just want you to know I'm disappointed. I'm disappointed because I wanted to be able to dismiss this case for you, and now I don't get a chance to do that. And this isn't all about me. This is about you. I see hope in you. I see that you were doing all of this. The power is in your hands. You were taking responsibility for your actions. What happened? And I'm like, can't answer that, but I want you to think about that. And those kinds of cases are way more difficult to deal with than the brutality that people inflict upon one another. It's difficult too. I'm not going to lie, but those other cases they weigh heavy on my heart.
Thank you very much for your time today, Judge Turlova. And our last question today is, as you may know, Legal is a woman in law and politics club, and our aim is to inspire and empower all of our members to push themselves. What last words of wisdom can you share to empower our members?
Don't give up, believe, and keep fighting, right? I mean, if you want to do it, I don't know any of you, and I don't know if it's law school, politics, or just being a successful young woman in what area you choose to go into, just believe it can happen. It will happen. Hard work does pay off. You don't have to be connected to somebody. You don't need to know the governor. You don't need to know people in high places to make things happen. But you do need to put yourself out there. So get involved with different things, different organizations, because those people are going to help lift you up and help empower you. It really does take a village to make all of this happen. I did not do this alone. And please don't ever think that I didn't. And when we have more time, or if any of you wanted to speak more to me in person, I'd be happy to tell you. But I didn't get here alone, and I recognize that, and I know it, and I appreciate it. Every single person that helped me is a fabric and a thread of who I am, and I carry them in my heart, and I work hard to make them proud every day. So just believe you can do it. You can do it. If I can do it, you all can do it. Trust me.
Thank you for all those kind words. I know that it's going to really resonate with all of our members. It definitely resonated with me. And all I wanted to say is that if you guys do want to contact Judge Torrealba, email us and we will send you her contact information. And like we mentioned earlier on in this meeting, is that we're going to be having a newsletter filled with internship opportunities that you guys can apply to. And I'll make sure to also have the courts there and the process of how I applied, because there is a specific website you have to go through. And I think that's going to be really helpful for all of you.
Absolutely.
With all of that being said, that's all we have for today. And thank you, Judge Torrealba.
Absolutely. And let me just tell you, the internship this year is going to be June 6th to July 29th of 2022. So if anyone's interested, contact me. You don't have to necessarily go through the website. You can contact me directly. Just let me know that you're either part of this group, or you heard about it through this group, or Rudy told you to get in touch with me. However, just spark my memory so that I can remember where it's coming from, and then I will point you in the right direction and get you in touch with the right people so that you can participate in the program if that's what you really want to do. Okay, so again, my pleasure to meet all of you. You're ironically, I will be on campus tonight. There's a UCLA basketball game. I have UCLA basketball tickets, and I will be at the UCLA Arizona game, and go Bruins.